Alright, today we're going to use Adobe Illustrator, and what we're going to do is we're going to begin to learn the tools in the toolbox. And we're going to specifically learn the tools in the toolbox. We're going to learn how to use our selection tool, our direct selection tool, and the pen tool, along with other drawing tools in our toolbox. We will not be concentrating on these other tools, but we may use them to show how to use these tools that we're going to talk about today in the drawing part of the toolbox. Now, the first thing that we want to learn here is I've got my desktop set up correctly. I've got my artboard in the middle here, also known as our canvas, and I've got my desktop, which is out here surrounding this area, this little rectangle that you see. Also want to let you know that this little rectangle, or this little area that's designated by this little black outline, is your printing area. Anything outside here is not going to print. Everything inside is going to print. So whatever you draw, whatever you create, if you want to have it print, it's got to be inside this little rectangle. So let's begin with the pen tool. And we're going to use these two cursors as we start to learn about this pen tool. Notice as I select my cursor here, I've got a set of tools right across the top of my screen with my Adobe Illustrator just below these little menus. And so what I want to be aware of is that I have some selections here that I can make and use when I'm creating with my pen tool. Alright, so let's just start with a basic little drawing here. I'm going to start by just making a block letter. It's not going to be perfect. In fact, I don't want it to be perfect right now. I don't really care if it is perfect, because the whole point of setting this up is so that I can then change it. So if these lines are not perfectly straight, I don't have a perfectly straight block letter, that's fine. I'm going to realign, redraw, recreate this letter. Okay? That's the whole point of this, is that I'm going to use what I've just created and make it into something else. Okay? So now, when I use these tools, notice that I am able to select this tool, and more tools are attached to it in this nice little menu box. How did I get this? I simply selected the tool with my cursor, held my mouse, clicked on the mouse, and held, and after about a half a second, this little menu flies out. And I have more tools here that I can select. Now, to begin, we're going to use the Convert Anchor Point tool, and what we're going to do is we're going to select these little anchor points here, and when we select them, we're going to click and drag and make a new line. And notice when I click and drag, when I first click and drag on that anchor point, my swing arms are of equal length no matter how far I drag, and they both swing and they're both connected. As soon as I let go of this, you'll notice that the line becomes, well, it's permanent up to the point where I want to create it, but let's say I select one side or the other of this swing arm, the other side is no longer active. So I've activated one side. And notice this right side here, this side that I'm working on, once I let go, once I decide this is the curve I want, this is how I want to bend this line, the other side deactivates. That other swing arm disappears. Well, that's because I'm working with this side of the line. Okay? And if I want to get that swing arm back to fix or recreate this curve that I made, I'm going to move down this line to the next anchor point. I could also do the same over here with this anchor point, but I'm going to move down the line with this anchor point. Now, as I select it, you can see the anchor point on the right side activated, and now I've got swing arms again, but you can clearly see that that other anchor point did activate. And as soon as I let go of this anchor point here, if I reselect it, I can move it and change it and bend this line, and this side, this anchor point that was right over here, deactivated. What if I want to get this line back, or this side of the anchor point back with that swing arm? I can come back over and reactivate it. Now notice my curve then disappears, I've got to design that curve. I've got to come back and rework that curve. But you'll notice that it's very simple, and moving these lines around and curving these lines, bending these lines is not difficult. I simply have to take a little time and make the selections that I want to make. Bend these lines how I want to bend them. Okay, I've got many different options, and I just keep working with these until I get what I want. Okay. Now notice I just selected this anchor point and it reverted. It went back to its original line or its original shape. If I want to recreate that line, I've got to reselect it and bend these lines how I want to make them work. And notice I wanted to reactivate this swing arm, so I selected the next anchor point down this line. Right here I reselected this anchor point, it reactivated my swing arm, and now I can move this back. Very simple. Now let's do something before we end this particular little lesson. And what I want to point out is I have two separate cursors. I have a selection cursor and a direct selection. Okay, and these both act differently. If I select my selection cursor, my selection tool, I can select this object and drag the whole object. Now, this object is filled with white. It's not white just because of the background. It's actually filled with white. If I want to change the color, I can show you that it is filled with color. And if I use this cursor, it moves the whole object. It moves the whole this design that I've created. Even if I deselect and just select the line, it's going to move the whole object. Now, the difference between these two cursors is as I deselect, and I can deselect anywhere around the outside of this object to deselect those little anchor points, and that line activates. I'm going to select and use my direct selection tool. And now, if I select inside this and just click and drag, it'll move as one piece. But if I deselect it and select on the line, notice that it activates my anchor points. And it activates this line. And now I can, and you'll notice that they're enlarging. These little anchor points are enlarging. And that means they're active, and I can click and drag them where I want and move them around. Okay? And so that is the basic part of this. Now, if I have an anchor point and I've bent or curved this line with my Convert Anchor Point tool, I can select it and I can get the anchor points, and I can also swing out these anchor points with this tool. But notice when I select the anchor point, they don't all activate. I have to be very careful when activating these anchor points with my direct selection cursor, but they both activate and they both stay there. Okay? All right, that is our lesson here. Hopefully you were able to get something from these three tools here and some of these drawing tools and our color picker. If you need more lessons or you need help in class, please see me. Okay? Good luck to you, and I hope that this lesson was helpful for you.